Good evening. This is Paranormal Science Lab Live. I'm Lisa.
And I am Hefe.
And I'm Carrie.
It's very hard to follow that up, isn't it, Carrie?
I am Hefe.
We have a new persona tonight.
I'm going to do it. I'll do a hat dance later.
Okay. I want the hat dance now.
I can't dance right now. I'm too tired.
We are very pleased to have as our guest Carrie Shubert. Carrie, how are you doing?
I'm great. Good to see you here, there, everywhere in this little computer. Hi.
You look great.
Yeah, I'd like to talk to you about that. You've aged rather well over the years. Do you have some sort of like key to your aging success?
Yeah, it's in the book, In the Wake of Lies.
Ooh, bird.
I've read a good part of it. And you spelled my name wrong, so don't even start with me.
I know, I'm sorry. And then I noticed that I noticed that. I am so sorry. I noticed that tonight, actually. I
think he's traumatized.
Oh, my God. Just take some white out and white out that H.
You see the tears?
What? Yes, I have one friend who I actually talk about in the book who is the only John that I know that doesn't have an H in his name. That's a J-O-N. So now I've got it. I will remember it. In fact, as I was tweeting the show, I went back and changed it when I realized that and did another tweet with the correct spelling.
That's okay. I'm still honored that you wrote me a little note. So
Yes, we are very honored that you sent us copies, and I'm very anxious to finish and
I finished it. I read it from cover to cover.
You just read the covers. That is
cover and cover.
Oh, I thought he was going to say he empathed it by like sticking it on his head or something. That's one way to read it. Not all the knowledge.
What was this with Denver, Colorado, and I don't know.
No, Denver's not in there, but that's okay.
You never been to Denver?
Actually, once in the 70s, I think we got gasoline. It's when I was married to husband 2, who was a drummer, and we were following my parents back to Beechwood, Cleveland, Ohio. And when we were taking a road trip, and we stopped in Denver, that was it. But no, I've not been to Colorado.
I'm having a hard time hearing her. I don't know if it's my ears aren't working right, or which is entirely possible today.
It is a little.
Yeah, we've got a little bit of a tinny thing going on there, but that's okay. We'll work around it. Hey, I wanted to get to your book. I have read. I'm on chapter 9.
Okay.
Which your life is so. You have done so much in such a short amount of time, and your life has been this roller coaster of alcoholism and drug addiction and an emotional roller coaster with David being the fellow that he was. I mean, how did you make it through all that and just really because I haven't finished the book, I know it's in the book.
Okay,
but you haven't read the book either.
Yeah.
And so I mean.
Yeah.
You must have just a really strong sense about it. I mean, it's just I don't know how you did it. I mean, I messaged you after I read the first chapter, and I was like, "What the hell?" I mean,
I'll tell you something. The first chapter, I would think is the hardest for people to get through because I had to cram in the first 27 years of my life. And I really didn't want to make that part a tell-all book. I mean, that's like total rock and roll industry, and I hung out with a lot of recording musicians that are famous to this day, Grammy Award winners, and I didn't want to, name names because a lot of those people, we all, you know, did cocaine together. That was the culture back then. So in answering your question, I think that for me, what really got me through some of the roller coaster stuff was in my 7th year of sobriety, I hit a crossroads, and shopping wasn't fixing it, having kids wasn't fixing it. The guy I was in a relationship with, who was my now ex-husband, husband 3, there was so much codependency, although at that time my ego was so big there's no way I would have ever called it that. In hindsight, now that it's years later, I can say it was total codependency, because everything I did in that marriage for the first 7 years of it was trying to, or the first 7 years we were together, was trying to do whatever I thought would get his approval and get him to love me more.
Right.
And I finally got to a point when I hit that crossroads that I realized it wasn't about David loving Carrie to make me feel okay about myself, that Carrie had to figure out who Carrie was and love Carrie. And that my identity was wrapped up in him and my children, you know, and I was lost. Who I was lost. And so for me, it was the 12-step program that I had my healing with. And through that, finding a power greater than myself. So I would say my spirituality and the journey to become more spiritual was what actually helped me and has continued to help me through some of the most major loss that I've gone through in my life. And that's the message that I help other people with, like my clients. It's almost like God gave me a seminar to go through that was like, okay, man, I'm putting you through this life seminar so that you can relate to the people that I'm going to send to you that are fragile. Because how could I transmit something I haven't got or something I haven't been through in a way?
I can see that. And another thing is that, so what you've been through, a lot of people have been through pieces of that.
Yeah.
I think what's extraordinary is that you went through so much. Because so many people will have one issue or another or go through one tragedy, but what do you think there was a purpose to you going through all that?
Absolutely. Now that I'm on the other side, yeah, but I'll tell you, it was a wild ride and it was hell. And I'm not going to lie and say that I learned how to just like, oh, I'm going to let go and let it roll off my shoulders. I had to feel the feelings and then decide, okay, is this particular event, whichever one I was going through at the time, am I going to be completely absorbed in this, or am I going to make this like, okay, I'm going through this, but my life isn't about this. So I had to be able to do the footwork and talk myself literally off the ledge. Like, okay, I can't make this consume me. You know, I can only do the footwork. And that, to me, that's the practice of spirituality. The practice of spirituality is doing the footwork and staying out of the results. So it's about believing that there's a consciousness, power, whatever anybody wants to call it, God, Jesus, Buddha, Allah, because I'm not a religious person. But I believe there's something greater than me running the show or I had to. People would say, how do you, how are you, what if you're wrong? And I said, well, then, thank God I've had my head up my ass all that time because it's kept me from worry. Because, you know what I mean? Because worry, it takes away from any joy, anything. If I waited to be on the other side of something, my life would have just sucked all the time. My middle daughter read the book. The other two haven't yet, my other two kids. And she said, wow, life really sucks. And I said, no, I learned how to make lemonade out of lemons. And that's really what it was. So, I'm sure even the monks that sit up and chant all day, you still are going to have stuff going on because you're in a human mind. And the mind, a human organism, and the mind goes chatter, chatter, chatter. So what we're here to do is learn how to get more moments of peace and quiet the space between our ears. And that's really what it was. And see, I used to think I was really spiritual because I was a psychic. You know, it's like, that's what I used to think spirituality was, is talking to dead people and predicting the future. But to me, it's the art of letting go and letting go, letting go and letting God. You know, finding a power greater than yourself and being able to go. That's the part of the go with the flow. And sometimes going with the flow is not just staying in the current, it's stepping out of it, you know, which can create havoc. But it's also trusting that connection between your umbilical cord and your higher power. You know, feeling that ick in your stomach when something's wrong.
Well, I agree with you. I found myself at different times in my life where I followed the philosophy of not forcing something. If you have to force something, it's not going to work.
And I've bounced, you know, talking about collective consciousness or something larger than us. You know, universal truth is something that I believe in wholeheartedly, but it's been a long journey. I mean, there's been multiple religions and spiritualities in there, and I've actually literally come full circle from where I was probably when I was probably 10 or 11, 12, somewhere in there, to where I am now, which is kind of funny because I've hit just about every spirituality I could possibly think of in the meantime in this big, long journey of my 39 years. But yeah, I know what you're saying. I mean, sometimes you just have to realize that there is a collective out there that we're a part of, you know, and we can access that and get information, and as sensitives, that's what we do anyway. But you know,
to a certain extent, John, I'm sure what you found too is that you can't, you know, I mean, we're part of someone else's script, so we're only going to get what they're allowed to know. And even in our own journey, you know, what I found too is knowing the future doesn't mean you can prevent it. You can get puzzle pieces and glimpses, but you can try to outsmart it and strategize. And if something's meant to be, it's still going to happen. And I talk about that also in the book by an experience I had in a relationship that I saw ending, and I thought that it came up for me to prevent it by having a conversation with that person, and I did, and then months later, what I had seen did occur. And so, you know, I mean, it just is how it is. Like, people will say, well, if you're psychic, can't you avoid all that stuff? No, you know, I mean, it's all part of your development. I think life, I always say this, life would be like the movie Pleasantville. You know, it would be very flatline if we didn't have something in it. Even people that are getting readings a lot, it's like, we're going to miss some things because we're not allowed to see some things, so that there can be some unpredictability, you know, even though it's already pre-scripted, somebody not seeing it, so that it adds to their character development or their own spirituality. I think we all get our own personal seminar and our own path to develop spiritually, because that's what we're here to do, is learn how to find peace in our head.
Well, I think it's almost the same as, in essence, as the grandfather paradox with time travel. You know, they say if you go back in time, you can change things that affect your present or future. It's kind of the same thing. I think if we had all the pieces of the puzzle, being human beings, we would screw it up. We would change it.
Well, look at how in some of those where they have those time travel things and someone goes back and tries to change it, the very thing they're trying to change ends up still happening anyway. You know, because it may be by going backward and trying to change it, what happens in the future occurs.
So, Emma, do you believe that we have a predetermined path before we're born? Or do you... Absolutely,
I do. If I'm wrong, I'll find out when I'm dead in the body. But it is my belief. It didn't used to be my belief. I was a big believer in free will, although it seems like it's kind of a dichotomy that I would predict the future and then believe that we could control it, because that's what I was doing for the first 7 years in my marriage. I was, before I even met him and married him, I was writing out goals, and they seemed to be coming to fruition. So I thought, wow, I've really got a harness on this thing. I know how to visualize, write them exact, and get everything I want. I know how to harness the power of the universe. And what I got to see after that was everything. I wasn't doing anything any differently, but the opposite was happening. The material stuff was all falling away, but who I was as a person was growing. So I was, because you can't fix a spiritual problem with a material solution anyway.
Well, I agree with that.
Did you guys ever see the Michael Douglas movie? It was called The Game. It was with also Sean Penn, I think, played his son.
Yeah.
It's been a long time since I've seen it, but yeah, I've seen that movie.
Okay, yeah, it was a movie that was out, I think, in the 90s, and it's where, Michael Douglas is a billionaire, and his son, Sean Penn, is, they're estranged, and his son does this seminar, and it's just like comes back, is making amends with his father, hasn't talked to him in years, and he makes amends with him and says, I did this incredible seminar. You've got to sign up for it. It's life-changing. And Michael Douglas sees that his son is really changed, and he's curious, and he goes, yeah, I'll do it. And he signs his contract and pays for it. It's really expensive. I think it was like $1 million. But they said, once you sign it, there is no out. There's no loophole. You're in it. And he thinks he's going to be attending a seminar. He doesn't go, and all this stuff starts happening in his life. Shit happens. And at the very end, and this goes on and on, but you see how he's changing by the outside events that are happening. And at the very end, when he's had this major transformation, all of a sudden, all the people that were coming after him physically and all this stuff, it turned out that was the seminar. And to me, that's so metaphorical for life, that we came in this body and said, okay, I'm in, this is the part I'm playing, and then it's kind of like we forget that's what it is. And I think that those little hints that we get from our higher power, whatever they are, that keep giving us like a little nudge, hey, remember, there's more than what's here. What you see is not what you get. There's more than this reality. And I'll hear it all the time from clients where they'll say, how come when I look at my clock, it says 11 every time I look at it, or certain numbers pop up, or songs on the radio. I think that we all get our own personal seminar, things to remind, and personal reminders.
Yeah. I get what you're saying, absolutely. And I'm a firm believer that we, to most of what you just said, especially the part, I think this body, this human body, we come into just so that we can experience being human, because as energy, you can't, there's some things you can't experience, like Lisa usually pinching me during a show. That thing, I can't get that as energy. So
doing what, pinching you?
Yeah, usually when I'm acting up, she'll pinch my leg or something. So if you all see me jump, that's what it is. It's abuse.
Yeah.
Lisa, just get a crop. Just get a crop you can hit him with.
No, she keeps it under the table. She's a lawyer, so she there's no proof.
Oh, what are you talking about?
There's no proof. She don't want any video of that.
You buying this?
Yeah, I actually have another book that it got on Amazon a year ago, thanks to the person who did the formatting and got my paperback online. She also uploaded a book that I actually self-published and was selling out of my trunk and at my seminars, called Living in the Third Dimensional Soap Opera, A Spiritual Guide to Sanity. And I talk about that. There are different segments to it where it's about, are we spiritual beings, how I think that the universe is set up, and then it goes into, so it's spiritual, psychological, and little phrases and things to help you maintain some sort of peace or soothe the soul during rough times. So that's my spiritual book.
What do you if our path is predetermined? What do you really feel the role of us having gifts of clairvoyance or empathy or other psychic abilities?
For fun.
Huh?
For fun. All
For
the things
fun.
that happen.
Just so we can mess with ourselves while we're living.
Yeah, exactly.
Torture.
It's to give you something to do. The mind is always needs food. You know, look at kids. If you don't give them projects, they become self-destructive. They start hitting each other and screaming and, you know, being nasty. If you give them productive things or something to engage the mind, then they're productive. It's the same with us adults. You know, people get bored, and what do? We go shop, gamble, have sex with somebody, you know, whatever. There's always the, like, okay, how do I fill this time? Especially with all the technology we have now. People are so used to everything being in, you know, like that, you know, in an instant that they get nuts if there's nothing to do. I used to be on dial-up for years, and my kids would get nutty, like, you know, having... Like, what do you mean you can't get something that fast? Or I even noticed, you send a text and it takes more than a second to get an answer. It's like, hey, what the hell's going on? I haven't heard back from this person. You know, we're in a society where everything is like full speed ahead.
You know, and I have thought about that many times, and I agree with you. I think that, and I work in technology as my daytime job when I'm a real human. And, you know, there's something to be said to us we're getting so much information so fast and so easily that we expect it. And you're right, we do expect it. And I think it's ruining our society in a way. I think that we've lost the art of patience.
We're changing.
I agree. I totally agree.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Carrie.
Yeah, no, I was saying I'm in total agreement with you about it. I think not only have we lost the art of patience, but we've lost the art of communication because people can blow each other off or they can send a text. You know, and that, I mean, I know I can get into more of an even cultural thing about it, but, you know, look at how, you know, sorry lawyers, but, you know, lawsuits and the whole thing about greed and money, it's like now it's to the point that if there are disputes, look at, you know, when two kids used to fight, it was called a brawl. And they'd fight it out, and then their parents would have them talk. Now it's like you run to the cops, they file assault and battery, no matter what age the kid is. There's, you know, take them to anger management classes. I mean, there's no sense of teaching that generation of how to talk things out and resolve them. People are afraid of that. And then if you, God forbid, say something that's politically incorrect because you didn't get the new updated memo on what each culture is now called. You know, it's like then you know you could ruin your life. I mean, it's so crazy.
Well, and you know, I've talked to my son about. My son is almost 17, and raising him has been a fun experience. But you know, if they even defend themselves in school, if somebody's picking on them and they defend themselves, they get in trouble too.
Or if someone throws a punch at them first, if they throw a punch back, they get the same punishment.
And that doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, I went through that with my son when he was 13. There was a kid on the school bus that was a little bit younger than him, and every day he would like hit my son's knuckles. He'd spit at him, and my son finally had enough. And when they got off the bus, instead of clobbering him, he could have punched him and knocked him out. Instead, he shoved him. Kid ran home crying, told his dad. His dad called the police. The police filed a report. We had to go to court. The prosecutor would not let it go. And then it came out like that. And the bus driver had video from prior weeks. But when he came to court, they wouldn't let him testify. In the meantime, before the court date, The kid ended up being suspended for provoking some other kid and punching him in the nose first, and it happened on school grounds. So the principal was going to come on defense of my son, and the judge wouldn't let any of that be admitted. I don't know if it was because it turned out the kid was ADHD or something like that. I forgot. But what ended up happening was they gave my son anger management classes, and the only reason they didn't do something worse, like my son looked at me and he goes, "Mom, the prosecutor hates me." And I said, "No, sweetie, they have to make you sound like you're a really bad person in front of the judge." And so they sentenced him to having to do an anger management class. And when they went around and said, "Does anybody have to say anything?" the kid's father said, "Oh my God, I am so sorry. This shouldn't have gotten this far. Sorry, the prosecutor did this." And I said to the judge, "You know, this is BS. We shouldn't be here to begin with. It's wasting taxpayer money. My ability to earn a living, because I have to take time out to fight this, and my son's peace of mind and his upset. You know, this is something that the parents should have gotten together and talked out and had the kids talk out so they could learn communication skills." I was reeling. Anyway, that's to me an example of what the hell goes on.
Yeah, it's true. Absolutely.
And unfortunately, I mean, we have a dichotomy coming, because in some ways our society is opening up to spirituality more.
I don't know what a dichotomy is. Do you know what a dichotomy is? Do you know that? Because I don't know dichotomy.
Oh, stop it. Stop.
I just realized that, Lisa, sorry, you're a lawyer. So,
that's all right.
I'm sorry.
Like,
No, don't apologize. I don't like many lawyers either.
Like the ambulance chasers, the class action suits that seem like they're all, you know, to perpetuate greed. Some are legitimate, and then and here's the bottom line. Everyone has to be responsible for living their own life with integrity. You know when you're not in integrity, period. You can't control what somebody else has through creating laws and all the other stuff that we do. It's like people have to learn. I think we all need to learn communication skills and be taught, you know, especially our kids, that there are consequences to actions. I think that's the biggest thing that I didn't really get when I was younger, and it occurred to me at some point when my kids were growing up, oh, wait a minute, I need to get them to learn how to think things through. Like, if I do this and this, is it worth it? What's the consequence going to be? I think that would make a big difference if people did that, where, again, here's the impulsiveness. And everyone's on meds for ADHD.
Oh, yeah, that's a whole nother crazy story. But
yeah.
what I was getting at is that on one hand, our society is moving towards more openness and acceptance of different spiritual beliefs and practices and exploration of self-identity. But on the other hand, these same forces we've been talking about are resulting in younger generations of kids that have no concept of reality outside of technology, no concept of working out problems, dealing with other people, and we're creating a mentality that everyone tells on everyone. No one solves a problem. It's all about, you know, a control game by, you know, this accusation or that accusation, and then it carries over into their adulthood, and they have, you know, healthy relationships are out the window at that point.
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
Then they end up with someone like me dealing with them because they can't figure out how to live their lives, and so they record on, you know, is it child custody or divorce or assault or this or that, and a lot of it comes back to we have lost our way of of teaching kids how to be human and how to respect themselves and others and explore their identity, spiritual and otherwise. But yet at the same time, you know, there's a movement towards exploring spirituality, but I see that there's a problem there that I don't know how that's going to work on down the line with these kids who don't have those skill sets.
Well, here's the other thing, Lisa. I think that as you were talking, I was thinking about, you know, one of the things, too, is like when you set goals, you can't, and John was talking about this, too, is you can't expect a quick result. So the thing that, like I'll give you an example. My son said to me, we were talking about careers, and this was a few years ago, we were talking about careers, and he said, well, if I do something I love, it's not going to feel like work. And I said, that isn't true. I said, you should always do something you're passionate about, but it doesn't mean everything's going to come easy once you find your niche. You know, that then, you know, there will be times that you will just show up for your job or your career because it's a commitment you made, and you have to find a way to create value that day. You know, it's not like an outside virus makes you feel great every day so that you keep performing. So, you know, I've noticed that. So I like in my own life, once I went on the path of doing this full-time work, and the universe definitely closed every other door that I tried to open, except for doing readings. And my first 4 years going at it again, my second first 4 years when I was going through my divorce, I have to tell you, were so hard, you know, and it was such a struggle, and it meant doing a lot of footwork. And I did psychic fairs to get out there because I was also now in Arizona where I didn't know anybody, and, you know, networking and doing everything I could to meet people and get the word out, and also showing up and being afraid. What if I'm not on target? What if I'm not good at it? What if people laugh at me? You know, and I would have to. I played Deepak Chopra's tape, the A to Z, creating affluence, I think it was called, and it would go A is for abundance, B is for, and I would play this on the way down to get into a calm state, because you can't operate out of ego and fear and looking for what the client's going to give you. I would have to put my head in a frame of, I'm here to be of service. Don't worry about the money. You know, the universe will provide. And there were times I had $5, and it was like, okay, how am I going to put gas in the car to get clear across town and feed 3 kids? It makes me want to cry. It was really tough. I would suggest to people going through that stuff, what really helped me was having a support group. And for me, it was the 12-step program. And because I had a place I could go cry and leave it there, the energy there, and then do my life and put the fear to the side. And for me, it reinforced, you know what, Carrie, where are your feet today? You know, don't get off into the fear of like, what if we're homeless? What if you're pushing a shopping cart? What if your ex-husband shows up and has you killed? You know, that was the other thing. I'd pray almost every day that I would get to live till my youngest one turned 18 so they wouldn't end up back with him. And so there was a lot going on at that time. And, you know, you just have to utilize whatever tools you can to help you through it. But anyway, I know I just went way off track. But with my son, so I explained to him, I explained to him, you can love what you do, but yeah, you're not always going to be in the mood, and you just have to keep doing it. But yeah, go after what you're passionate about, and then follow that path. I have you guys speechless.
Yeah, a little bit. No, I mean, I agree with you. I think that, you know, people, and I tell my son the same thing. I say, you know, going to college this day and age, you know, I have my doubts on whether that's actually a good thing or a bad thing. I think that if you can go and not accumulate a lot of debt, sure, go.
Yeah.
If you can't, you might, think about what actually, you want to do. Because sometimes people just go to school. And I told him, I said, find out something you love. Figure out what you love to do, and figure that out before you go to college. And you may not even need college for that. Whatever it is. I said, you at least, grab.
Uh-oh, you're frozen.
Did we lose him? Hold on just a second, folks.
I'm here, but I think they're not.
Yeah, I'm getting them right back.
I'm going to grab some. About your son going to school. I think that what I think is really great about school, and I realized watching my kids really struggle through it, a couple of them really struggled through it back then, was, it seemed like if you could show up when you didn't feel like it to go to school and get it done, that really teaches you the discipline of keeping a commitment or showing up for something even when you don't want to,
I can understand what you're saying, but that, you could also say that about working at McDonald's. Yeah. Really. So, you go to a crap job like working at McDonald's, I did it for 2 years through high school. I don't know that, really I got more out of that than going to college, to be truthful. That's just my personal opinion of it. But
yeah. Well, I feel like everybody doesn't always know immediately what they're passionate about. In my book, Living in the Third Dimensional Soap Opera, I talk about, there's one page about how to really get into action, like some of the things you can do. And one of the things that I think is important is if you make a list, and this is what I did, so I would figure out what I wanted to be when I grew up at 40. I made a list. I had one list like, what am I good at? The other one was, am I educated enough to or qualified for? And the other one was, what am I passionate about? Not necessarily in that order. I might have started out with, what am I interested in? And I looked at the list, and I always say then, don't go, it's like the Be Do Have, they talked about it as, be what it is you want to, whatever it is you want to be, out of being you will do and you will have, instead of if I have this, I will do this and be that. So it's be, do, have, it's the reverse. Be the thing you want to be. But because I wasn't clear about what I wanted to do, I just did different things. I took writing classes. I took a comedy workshop for 6 months. And so when people say I don't know what to do, you know, I will look to see what I think their life path is, but I will also suggest that they write that list and try different things. You know, one of the things, too, is also if you get like a list of classes, let's say you get a catalog from a college, look at them and you might see something in there that rings a bell that you didn't think of, that you might be interested in terms of a career. You know, I think taking an action is better than a no action, because if you try different things and the door closes, you know that turn left. That isn't the way you were supposed to go. But it may be part of what makes up your full package. Like McDonald's was your experience there, makes up a part of who you are.
Well, I see where you're coming from. I agree a little bit with both of you. I think part of the issue I think we're coming to now, and I think what maybe John was getting at, is that for the last, well, really since World War II, the GI Bill, we've been taught that we all go to college, we all get a degree, and we're all going to live the American dream. But then as education has become so expensive, you have the problem that even if every American has a college degree, someone is still going to be a janitor, someone is still going to work in restaurants, someone is still going to be, you know, work in the gas station. And it doesn't always make sense to put in the debt load for that college education if you're not going to take that path. And I think that's where we have to rethink, is that people jump in, oh, I'm supposed to do this, and that they get the debt and the student loans, and then they spend the rest of their life trying to figure out how to get off the treadmill.
Right. And that's where I'm coming from on my side, is that I did accumulate debt, and really I didn't even need college for what I enjoy doing. So, and that's what I try to bestow in my son, is that, you know, you may not need college to enjoy your life. I mean, if you can make enough money doing what you enjoy doing to live, then what more do you need? I don't think that, you know, and as you could probably attest, being very wealthy is not something that brings happiness.
No, absolutely. No, and I'm in agreement with both of you. I think, you know, how somebody does it is part of their path. Like my brother has bent over backwards to be able to get, for his kids to get certain scholarships. And he had 4 kids at one time in college. And, you know, it's what he believed, because he went to college and got a degree, even though he didn't do anything that applied to what he went to college for. He went back to what he loved, even though he went to Emory and got a degree in biology. But, you know, it's his belief that his kids need to go there, you know, whereas my belief was my kids should just do what they love, and if they want to be a garbage collector and they absolutely love it, I don't care, as long as they're doing what they love. You know, I think that for me the biggest gauge of living a quality life or a life of purpose is to think of, if I was at the end of my life, do I have any would have, could have, should have?
Right, I agree. I mean, yeah, I agree. I see where you're coming from. You know, and you know, I told Tristan and my son, I said, you know, truthfully, he likes photography. I said, you know, you don't really need to go to school to be a photographer, or at least college. I mean, you can hit a tech college and get the information that you need to become a successful photographer without accumulating a ton of debt. And that's what I'm saying. What's kind of where I'm going is that as long as it's what he loves to do, you know, figure out if you actually need to go do that. And he wants to go, you know, he's talking about going to New Zealand after he gets out of high school and just living for a while. And I'm sure, do it, you know,
wow,
go experience. But we kind of got off track here, so let's get back to your book. Keith, what do you got any questions? I'm out of questions. I could talk forever about sons and colleges, but
we don't want to bore the audience. Yeah,
I would bore them with my intellect.
Well, okay. What I'm curious, Carrie, is of everything that you went through. It's fascinating to me. You ended up working on murder cases. How do you think everything that you went through helped you in those situations?
Well, let's see. Boy, I don't even know how to answer that, because when I was first developing my ability, that was what I would pick up on. I wouldn't pick up on just like, oh, somebody died. I would pick up on if I was out with somebody and I was in a place where there had been a murder committed, I would pick up on it. So I'd feel it. And I think that's pretty true of most people that, one, are not going to be a professional psychic or medium for a living, but their first awareness of psychic stuff, usually they say, how come I feel all this bad stuff? How come I know when something bad's going to happen, or I pick up on something bad? It's because that kind of energy, and I don't even like to term it bad, that energy is stronger. The other stuff that happens that we pick up on, we think, until we recognize it, is coincidence rather than that also is stuff we're picking up on. But I should say for me, I've always been interested in people that have passed away because they came to me. And as I developed my ability, I would say that, like, when you pick up on somebody who's been murdered or somebody who just died naturally, it feels all the same. The person isn't living in death. They're not in a horrible place. I think that usually somebody leaves their body when it's their time to go. So they don't feel that their death. I don't think they feel their death as intensely as we think they do. Oh, there you guys are! Yay!
Yay!
So, yeah. So I don't. When somebody, so in other words, a deceased being doesn't walk around like in these horror movies, like trapped in the event of their death. I'll feel it as if it's like a kind of dull or distant pain. I think childbirth is more painful, to be honest, than dying, because you're, if you're doing natural childbirth, you're in pain for a long period of time. If you're being murdered, unless you're being tortured, you're out of your body fast. It's not something that is prolonged. And then why I got into it is because I'm really involved in the well-being of others and transformation of people's lives, and I'm like a psychic coach in many ways. It was just natural that, okay, if somebody wants me to tune into, a murder, fine. I don't necessarily, I wanted to say, I don't work with the police daily. I've done it a few times, that's it. They usually don't contact me. I'll usually get people who have had a relative or a friend murdered, and then they will come to me, because they're curious about some stuff. And here's the thing. I'm not a murder solver. I can pick up on stuff, but it's up to the police. Obviously, they have to find evidence, and we as psychics, don't always go, oh, here's the evidence that will connect the crime, just like a cop might know who the killer is, and they need then the evidence to prosecute them. But what I loved about my work with parents of murdered children is that there's so much inspiration and courage and love in those groups that when you see these people who have had that kind of pain, to me it was like I get to give them better memories than the memory of that phone call from the police department that their kid has been murdered. So I get to give them some events and things that they know I couldn't know, evidence that their kid is at peace, and that will stay with them. The stuff that I was able to pick up on for them about an event during their life with that person. You see what I'm saying? Rather than that last phone call. And
yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah, that makes sense.
yeah, and I always thought it would be a drain. When I first was asked to do the group, I thought, oh my God, it's going to be so draining. But honestly, it wasn't. It was so inspirational because they have they turn the tragedy into something that helps other people. Maybe they create a foundation in the person's name. It's like anything. You can either go, oh, woe is me, and then drink, or go out and hurt people, or you can go through an event and go, and after you're over, feeling the feelings, okay, how can I help someone else, or how can I make a difference to someone else who's going through the same thing? And that, to me, is so inspirational, and that's why I am willing to help in that area.
Carrie, we're getting towards the top of the hour. We want to make sure that people get an opportunity to hear how to contact you and where to find your books to buy. And I highly recommend your new book to everyone. It's a fascinating read, and I can't wait to finish it. If I hadn't been in the emergency room last night with my son, I would have gotten it done.
What the hell with your son? My book's more important. It's all about me. No, I'm kidding. I'm teasing you. I'm letting you off the hook. All right, so my book is on Amazon, Kobo, Nook, and Smashwords, and Kindle. And it's on Amazon in paperback, as you have that in front of you. And it's called In the Wake of Lies. And they can also go to inthewakeoflies.com, Lies, lies. And they also can go to my website, which is carrieshubert.com, which has the information to contact me. And my name is spelled Carrieshubert. So, John, if you put a C in there, then it serves you right. You got an H in your name.
No, I'll put a C in there. And I'm going to call you Shubert.
And then I have this book, which is Living in the Third Dimensional Soap Opera, A Spiritual Guide to Sanity, which is also on Amazon, Kindle, Kobo, and it's a book meant to soothe the soul. I actually sold like 300 of these at seminars over the year and out of my trunk. And now it's on Amazon. So my purpose really isn't to sell a ton of books. It's to make a difference in the lives of others. And, some people will relate to some parts of my story, maybe not to the degree that I went through, but, I think we women and men can relate to putting someone else before ourselves and wanting it to work and living in hope, hope that it'll change, or fear of leaving. And then also about finding our passion, and living a purposeful life.
I think that's the best advice for anybody.
I agree.
And Carrie, I'm welcome to hang on. We're going to talk for just a couple of minutes about some things that John and I have going on, and plug in ourselves here for just a minute. And but we want to thank you for being our guest. But hang on, and we'll say goodbye. John, you want to talk about what we got going on?
We don't have anything going on.
That's not what you said.
Oh. We will be here at the John Weiss house this Friday night. Let me check the date on that, because the 17th at 8 p.m.
Frozen again.